Hello, everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I want to talk to y'all about more tips and tricks as vending as an author. So let's get into it. Vending at conventions and events is a very big part of working as an author. And what this means is when you sign up for events and conventions, you have a table or a booth space or some sort of area where you can sell your books and feature yourself and your brand. And this is a very daunting part of the process of being an author, and there are a lot of people that do have a lot of trepidation to making that first step in being a vendor at events, because it is a big wide world out there and there's a lot that you need to learn real fast in order to be successful at these events, or at the very least not do badly. And so I have so many other videos on this channel where I cover this particular topic. So this one is building on those other videos. So if this is your first time here, please do go check out these videos first so that you can get those step one sort of steps and then come back here for more tips ahead. One of the big things that I've learned that's really helpful with vending as an author at conventions, especially if you're someone that has social anxiety and you have trouble talking to people, or you have trouble with being the person that makes the first move with starting a conversation with people or catching people's attention, have some catchphrases at the ready. Now, obviously, you don't need to go so far as to make this into like Saturday cartoons level of catchphrases and silliness. You can if you want to, and you want to make that your brand, that it's Saturday cartoon silliness. It's definitely a way to go. It's definitely memorable, but you don't have to go that far. Let me give you all an example. A common catchphrase that I use, and when I use it, is people are just walking past my booth and they show general interest, meaning that they're not doing the like, I am on a mission, don't talk to me face. They're not facing away from me. They don't immediately look away from me like, oh God, I made eye contact, I run away. No, it's they kind of are generally looking at me, looking at the books, but they're still kind of moving. They're not necessarily looking like they're going to stop at the booth, but they haven't made it clear whether or not they want to interact yet. All throughout my catchphrase of, hey, come on over, the books don't bite. And it's an inviting phrase. There's no commitment here. I can see you're looking at the books. You can come on over, you can approach me. The books aren't gonna bite you. Come and look at them. And I give them a minute to come over and approach, and they'll usually say hi or make a little joke like, ah ha ha, what if the books do bite? And I have a follow-up catchphrase for that one, which is why I set this up, is since I have my vampire books, Succumb to Darkness, I get to then tell them, well, gotta be careful of Succumb to Darkness, because, you know, those vampires do bite, so can't make you any promises. And that's how you can also lead them in after you have, like, an introductory greeting catchphrase, is see how you can build on them to keep their interest, to keep them at your booth, to keep them interacting with you, and most importantly, looking at the books. Again, this doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It doesn't have to be super-duper original. It doesn't even have to be funny. It just has to be inviting, polite, and warm. You want to make sure that people feel comfortable. So this is where you want to avoid things that are very car salesy. You don't want to basically just be barking at people, shouting at people the equivalent of, come over here and buy my book. You know you wanna. Don't be aggressive. Don't shout at people. Don't harass people that are very clearly not interested in stopping at your booth. Make sure that you are gauging the reaction of the person and you're giving them the opportunity to approach you. Make it inviting and non-committal so that they can feel that they have made the choice to come into your space and look at your books, because you are far more likely to make a sale when people feel that it is their choice to do so, that they don't feel forced. Another catchphrase that I use, and this is usually when somebody's been very quietly perusing for a bit, and they don't seem to be really landing on a book. They're just kind of like picking them up, looking at them for about equal amounts of time. Usually then I'll use the catchphrase, "So what do you like to read?" This again helps keep them at the booth longer, encourages them to interact with me, but then also sets me up to be able to then make a suggestion to them. And again, makes them feel like it's their choice. I'm not just barking at them, "Oh, I got fantasy and historical fiction and romance and horror and poetry. Pick your poison, what you like." That feels so aggressive and makes it feel like it's not their choice. I'm just throwing options at them. When I take that step back and ask them, "What do you like?" then they have the freedom to tell me what they like to read. And then I can make a suggestion based on that. Or I can let them know, "Hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't have anything at this booth that's what you like to read, but hey, feel free to look at the books. You might find something outside your wheelhouse that you'll enjoy." This usually happens the most when people tell me that they love reading sci-fi. I don't write sci-fi. That's not going to stop someone from picking up and buying one of my books. It happens a lot, actually, where it's not necessarily a thing that they would normally pick up and read, because obviously I don't have sci-fi, but something catches their eye for one reason or another. And so having that honesty as well helps to build rapport and further make them feel it is their choice to pick up the book, to interact with you, to decide if they want to buy a book or not. That is such an important part of the game and how catchphrases can really help you to build that. And I know these things don't really sound like what you traditionally think of a catchphrase. It's more so that I feel like script makes it sound so much more rigid than it is that it's like, I say a thing and then you say a thing and then I say a thing and then you say a thing. Catchphrase makes it feel more flexible. That I have these different catchphrases and I can pick and choose which ones I use or don't use and when I use them in order to best curate the experience with each individual person that approaches my booth. Because y'all, there are sometimes people that will approach my booth and they are just immediately like, "Shut up and take my money." They just grab a book and shove it in my face and shove money in my face and off they run off with the book. Like, that happens. And then there's people where we have to have that little dance, a lot of back and forth before they're finally like, "You know what? I'm gonna buy this book." And that's okay. It's just that being able to have some responses already ready to go will help you to get started and also maintain that dance. That's a big thing that I personally have learned, because I know it probably doesn't seem that way, but I'm actually an introverted person. I'm an introvert. I'm a very socially awkward person, and I have had actually really severe trauma in my past that makes socializing really hard for me. And so having these backup catchphrases gives me something that I can fall back on when I'm not feeling at my best, or when I'm under a lot of stress, or when I have the umpteenth person come by my booth that day and my brain is just absolutely fried and I just have no energy left to be witty and creative. And so I have to fall back on these little catchphrases in order to keep myself going. Because y'all, I'll give you a really extreme example. So unfortunately, way back when I was a young kid, I can't even call it bullying. I was straight up tortured for 2 years of my life in junior high, to the point where I stopped talking. It was that bad. Like, it got to the point where I just was mute. I just stopped talking. And it took me years to just learn how to be a people. And I'm still not very good at being a people, just to be perfectly frank. But all the way up to my mid-20s, I had to make it a New Year's resolution to be like, all right, we need, for the sake of our writing as an author, we need to get out there and we need to get better at talking to people, at going to events, and networking. And y'all, it was hard. It was so hard. It was so painful. And oh yeah, it was so awkward. I had some of the most cringe-worthy conversations, if you can even call them that, just interactions with other people. I'm sure to this day, some people are like, wow, there's that one weirdo that said that one really weird thing to me. I'm sure that those experiences live on in other people's minds and they were awful. But it's a thing you have to keep practicing at. And having these little catchphrases has been an absolute cheat code for me, that I have this thing to fall fall back on when I am having social anxiety, or I am tired, or I am stressed, or I'm approached with a person that's throwing a vibe where I'm like, I don't know what to do here. And all of those things are valid. And of course, you have to do what feels safe and comfortable for you. However, if you are like how I was when I was first starting out, you do need to put your toe over the line of what feels safe and comfortable in order to make any sort of progress. You are going to unfortunately have to do stuff that does feel unsafe and uncomfortable. And when I say unsafe, I mean like you feel like, oh my God, this is overwhelming social anxiety, not you are putting yourself in a dangerous situation. Obviously, don't do that. But I'm just saying sometimes we can let the sense of safety betray us and keep us in our little bubble, and then we don't grow as a person. So don't be afraid to put your toe outside of that. And it's going to be painful. It is. And you just got to do it. You just got to do it. And it gets easier, and you're able to go a little bit past that line a little more each time. You get a little better at it. That's how I've gotten here, and I have this YouTube channel now, and I feel comfortable talking to people, and how now I do live streaming on Twitch, and I'm able for like hours and hours to just be like la 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 having a conversation with strangers on the internet. I didn't get here overnight. This is literally like, I want to say like a decade and a half in the making of me being able to pretend to be this extroverted, look at me, I know how to interact with people kind of person. Newsflash, I don't. I'm making it up as I go. But anyway, I digress. Catchphrases are a great way to help yourself at events. Another thing that I have found is the flip side of it is dealing with people who have a lot of social anxiety and who might not feel comfortable with interacting with you. It's just as important to recognize that vibe. Don't keep trying to talk to somebody who clearly does not feel comfortable talking to you, because you will scare them off and they won't buy your book. They will run away from your booth. So instead, I created these little cards that I put out on my booth in front of my books, and it basically gives them just a short little rundown of, this is a fantasy book with this type of trope, and here's a one-sentence thing that gives you just the most general overview of what this book is. And by putting those out, it allows the people who don't necessarily feel comfortable talking to me can just kind of make their way down the booth, reading the little cards, and then every time they will then find the card and stop, and they'll be like, oh, this is the book. And then they will pick up the book and they will look at the back cover, and y'all, 90% of these interactions I've had like this, not a single word is said to me. It is completely silent. They will then look at the back of the book, look at the cover again, look at the back of the book again, look at me, hand me the book, and I'll tell them, oh, that's this amount of monies. Would you like to pay cash or card? They hand over a form of payment to me. I handled the form of payment. I ask them if they want me to sign the book. They'll either shake their head no or nod their head yes. I do accordingly and give them the book and tell them that I hope that they enjoy it and have a nice day, and then they frolic off into the sunset with the book. Not a single word was uttered. And that is so okay, because honestly, a lot of times the people at conventions and a lot of times people who enjoy reading books are a bit socially awkward, do have difficulty with interacting with people. And so being aware of that and knowing how to address that is also very important as a vendor, being able to read those vibes so that you can adjust yourself accordingly. Because the most important things are, you need to be inviting, you need to be polite, and you need to be warm. You don't necessarily need words in order to portray those three things. Sometimes just having a very warm presence, having a small, not creepy, just, small little smile like this, and just, not staring at them, because that's the other thing that I see people do. Don't just stare at them. It makes them uncomfortable. Even people that aren't necessarily thrown off the socially awkward vibe, don't just stare at people while they shop your books. That makes people feel uncomfortable. It makes people feel like you think they're going to steal from you, which honestly makes them less likely to want to buy your books because it feels accusatory. I'll kind of glance at people so that they know I'm paying attention, I'm here, I'm approachable, and then we'll just pick somewhere to just kind of do this. Just like that. Just kind of, not necessarily staring into the abyss, because then you don't look approachable at all, but just kind of, looking at nothing in particular, just kind of moving your gaze slowly a bit around the room. Maybe look down, see who's approaching. Maybe look up, see what banners are across the way. Look down again at the people at your booth, give them a smile and then look somewhere else. Doing that helps to take the pressure off so that people don't feel like I am observing you looking at these books, because that can be weird and uncomfortable. It's all that dance of being inviting and warm and approachable. And the reason why I also say polite in there is that politeness really does go a long way. I have really found over and over again, not just with interactions I've had vending at events, but just literally being out in public around people, being polite will get you so far. It really, truly will. And just showing people that, hey, I'm just here, whatever you need, just being nice will win people over so much more, because I know it can be tempting to do the whole gruff car salesman-y thing. We want those sales. Some of us are a little bit too eager about it, and it can be hard to rein that excitement in, that, oh, I'm gonna make a book sale, because it's kind of that thing where the harder you cling to it, the less likely it's going to happen. You have to just let it happen, and that can be so hard to let go of, to just let yourself just be polite and just accept whatever's going to happen is going to happen, rather than just trying to throttle the hell out of it. Just, buy my book. And I know, because I was like that at first, where I didn't know where the line was. I was figuring it out. I was learning how to read the vibes on people, on what they wanted from me, on what would make them feel comfortable. And there are still going to be situations that are going to throw you for a loop where you don't know how to react. I have had many of those situations happen. And in those cases, just fall back on being polite. Unless it's somebody's going out of their way to be just horrible at you for no reason, then obviously throw politeness out the window. But those are very few and far between situations. But when you're presented with something where you're like, I don't know what's happening, just being polite will sometimes get the cart back on the rails. For example, I one time had a guy come up to my booth, and to this day, I have no idea what this interaction was. It was something. It was like this guy was having a completely different experience, parallel to my experience. I don't know what was going on. I don't know if he had something going on or if he thought he was being funny. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But he came up to my booth. I can't quite remember exactly what he said, but he said something about, are these Aperture magazines? And I was like, no, these are art books. And I gave him, the little spiel of what they are, opened one to show him. And he was like, yeah, Aperture magazines. And I'm like, no, they're art books. I'm not quite sure what Aperture magazines are. I'm sorry. I don't have Aperture magazines here, if that's what you're looking for. And then he proceeded to shout at me, the Fourth Revolution, right on, and then ran away. And I was just like, okay, that was an experience. Okie dokie. But the fact that I wasn't rude, I wasn't snobby, I wasn't mean, I was bewildered, certainly, but I fell back on my politeness and just kept trying to assume that there was some sort of comprehension breakdown here, because it wasn't for him, because clearly he was on planet I don't know what, and it didn't really matter what I said to him. I could have said anything and he probably would have had a completely disjointed reaction regardless of what I said. It was for everybody else who saw this reaction, who saw this weird interaction take place, to show them, even in the face of complete and total WTFery, that I can still be warm and approachable and polite. And that says volumes about how their experience is likely going to go. And after that, I had people that were kind of standing off to the side like, what on earth just happened, who then came up to my booth. And I can guarantee you, if I had had a bitchy response, they would have walked away. They would not have wanted to interact with me, because then that makes them wonder, was she bitchy because he was weird, or is she just mean? And you don't want people asking that question. You want people to come to your booth. So, like I said, unless someone is gravely mean to you, fall back on your politeness. It's not necessarily for that person. It's for the other people that you might not necessarily realize are watching you and listening to you. So always be aware. It's not just the one person that you're interacting with or the people directly in front of you at your booth. other people can see and hear you too. And not only that, the people at the booths next to you can also see and hear the kind of interactions you have with the people at your booth. And if they have people at their booth and they notice that you're being not nice, you're being kind of horrible, they will tell the people at their booth, hey, you might want to skip over that booth. They seem to be kind of having a tude problem, or I don't know, they got something going on today. You might not want to go past their booth. You might want to skip it. That happens. So always make sure that you're following the 3 most important things so that you don't lose out on people coming to your booth just because you have a bad attitude or you have bad vibes or you unfortunately have an interaction gone wrong, and then that looks bad on you. To give an example, if you're wondering what constitutes dropping the politeness, of course, there's varying degrees of this, and use your best judgment. I'll use an extreme one. So a common one that unfortunately happens to me as a femme person, and then on top of it as a very colorful, whimsical femme person, I will have older men come up to my booth and they will see my plethora of books that I have published, and they will derisively snort at me or even do the pick up a book and toss it at me, one of my favorites, and claim, oh, a lady that thinks she can write, or oh, the phenomenon of the female author. Because unfortunately, there are men who think that women can't write, that our writing is beneath them, that we can't compare with men who write, just all that misogynistic crap. And they will usually say something along those lines to me, just something just very misogynistic and dumb, and basically claim that my books aren't real books, that I'm not a real author, that my writing is crap, just because I'm a femme person. 100% I am not being polite to them. Not in the slightest. I'm not going to be a bitch. I'm not going to cause a scene. Because again, people around me are watching, and you need to make sure that your reaction makes sense with what's happening. You can't just completely go off the rails. So I'll usually either sit there and say nothing and just wait for them to get bored and leave and just make them look stupid all by themselves. Or if they're being persistent, I'll then turn around and ask them, and I'm like, how many books have you written? It's my favorite question to ask in this particular interaction. And they're usually like, oh, I'm still working on my manuscript. And I'll be like, so you don't have any published books? I have over 30. And then just watch them turn red and bluster off somewhere else and just go away. Even if you can't be witty, it's the who can get mad first game. Not letting them make you mad makes you look better and makes them look bad. So always keep that in mind. Do everything in your power to not let them make you visually mad. And if worse comes to shove, obviously, if someone is being a massive problem and they won't leave you alone, call security. Ask someone to go get security for you. Stand up and make a scene shouting for security, whatever you have to do, because unfortunately that has happened to me where I've had to call security on people, where people just decide to be out of control Looney Tunes for one reason or another. Never be afraid to stick up for your personal safety. However, like I said, make sure you're gauging your reaction by what's actually happening. I know as authors, we can be very proud people, we can be very proud of our works, and it hurts when people say mean things about us and about our works. But you have to take that pride down and accept that people are going to say things whether they're true or not, whether they're saying it just to be mean or not, and you can't let it visually upset you. You can be as mad as you want later when you're in private by yourself. Because Lord knows, me and Neil, we have our sessions where we're like, oh my God, you would not believe this stupid person today. We 100% have those sessions, and you are more than entitled to have those. Just don't have them publicly. Don't have them at your booth at the event where people can see you, because it makes you look bad. I hope this video has been helpful, and if you liked it, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.